Only those who lived through those skies truly know. Only those who spent hours staring into a grey horizon with the engine vibrating and the radio silent understand the psychological weight of each mission. For many Allied pilots, fear did not come only from combat itself, but from waiting for the enemy to appear without warning, waiting for fuel gauges to drop, waiting for the moment when they would have to turn back and leave the bombers behind. For a long time, flying over occupied Europe meant accepting that there might not be a return. At the beginning of the war, the Luftwaffe dominated the European skies with near absolute confidence. Its pilots were experienced, disciplined, and flew aircraft designed specifically to intercept and destroy bombers. To them, Allied fighters had a clear structural weakness: limited range. No matter how skilled the pilot, eventually he would have to turn back. And when that happened, the bombers were left alone, slow and exposed. This pattern repeated itself for months. German pilots did not see this as arrogance, but as logic. They simply waited for the right moment. Once the escorts disappeared, the sky became a hunting ground. Many believed this dynamic would never change. They were convinced they had figured out how the Allies fought in the air, and that doing what already worked would be enough. Then something began to break that logic. Mission after mission, American bombers pushed deeper into German territory. Factories, industrial centers, and strategic targets that once seemed unreachable were being hit with growing frequency. And the most unsettling detail was simple. The escort fighters were still there. They did not turn back. They stayed. At first, many German pilots assumed they were mistaken. What they were seeing simply did not make sense. Denial came first. Some believed it was a temporary effort, an isolated experiment that would soon end. But it didn't. The fighters were there again the next day, and the day after that. Slowly, the sense of control began to slip away. Something new had entered the equation, and no one had been prepared for it. It was in this moment that the P-51 Mustang revealed its true impact. Not as a myth, not as propaganda, but as constant presence. A fast, agile fighter with the range to escort bombers all the way to the heart of Germany and remain there to fight. To the Germans, this was not just a new aircraft. It was the collapse of a long-held certainty. Luftwaffe records and pilot accounts showed genuine surprise. Experienced pilots, accustomed to dictating the pace of combat, began reporting unexpected encounters, extended chases, and fights under conditions that had once favored only one side. The Mustang did not wait. It chose when to engage and when to disengage. That alone changed the psychology of air combat. The shock was not only technical, but emotional. For the first time, many German pilots realized the sky was no longer safe. The distinct sound of the P-51's engine began to carry a new meaning. Not defense, but constant threat. There was no longer a moment of relief after the escorts withdrew. They simply did not withdraw anymore. On the American side, the shift was just as profound. Allied pilots, once bound by strict limits imposed by fuel range, began to feel something rare in wartime. Sustained confidence, not blind confidence, but the knowledge that they now had a machine capable of matching and often surpassing the enemy in his own airspace. That realization changed how they flew, how they fought, and how they approached every mission. And that is what the Germans could not believe when they witnessed the power of the P-51 Mustang. Not just its performance, but what it represented. The material proof of an American strategic shift where industry, engineering, and rapid adaptation met in the sky. The Mustang did not end the war on its own, but in that moment over Europe, it made one thing unmistakably clear: the balance had changed. As the months passed, the impact of the P-51 Mustang stopped being isolated and became structural. Losses within the Luftwaffe began to rise steadily, not because of a single decisive battle, but due to relentless repetition. Experienced German pilots, some with years of combat behind them, were being shot down in situations they once controlled. Germany was not only losing aircraft, it was losing accumulated experience, something that could not be replaced quickly. The difference became even clearer in the way air combat evolved. Before, German pilots chose when to attack. Now they were being hunted. The P-51 was no longer limited to escorting bombers. It actively pursued the enemy. Airfields, known flight paths, and areas once considered relatively safe were now under constant threat. This forced the Luftwaffe into a more defensive posture, reducing its offensive capability at a moment when the war demanded the opposite. The psychological toll was severe. Many German pilots took off knowing that even returning from a mission no longer guaranteed safety. The sky, once a place of control and familiarity, had become unpredictable. This constant pressure affected morale, decision-making, and overall combat effectiveness. It was no longer just about facing a better aircraft. It was about facing an enemy that offered no pause. On the American side, the P-51 established a new reality. Continuous escort allowed bombers to complete their missions far more consistently. Strategic targets were struck repeatedly, weakening Germany's industrial and logistical backbone. Each successful mission added pressure to a system already showing signs of exhaustion. But the Mustang was more than an engineering success. It was the direct result of the American mindset of adaptation. When a limitation was identified, it was not accepted as fate. It was treated as a problem to be solved. The P-51 represents that mindset clearly. The alignment of operational necessity, industrial capacity, and rapid response. Few nations managed to achieve that balance during the war. Allied veterans recalled that with the Mustang, missions carried a different weight. Fear did not disappear, but it no longer dominated every thought. There was now a sense of balance. They knew they were no longer entering enemy territory alone. That confidence did not make combat easy, but it made it bearable, mission after mission. By the time German leadership fully understood the impact of the P-51 Mustang, the air war had already changed irreversibly. There was no single day when everything shifted. Instead, there was a slow accumulation of hard realizations until the truth became unavoidable. Air superiority was slipping away. The power of the P-51 was not defined only by speed, range, or firepower. It was defined by what it caused. A shift in strategy, a shift in mindset, a shift in the course of the air war. The Mustang did not win the war on its own, but it was one of the decisive elements that made victory possible. And if stories like this, told with respect, context, and memory, matter to you, leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. That support helps keep the stories of those who were there alive.